For many years, humanity tried to stay patient. They tried to respect the decisions made by the Galaxy Council, even when those decisions felt unfair, unbalanced, or deeply disrespectful. Humans were the newcomers in the larger galaxy, and they understood that. So they kept their heads down, worked harder than anyone else, and did their best not to cause trouble. But patience has limits. And the Council kept pushing Dot. It started with small things, tiny fines on Earth's trading ships, restrictions on how many colonies humans could build, and strict rules nobody else seemed to follow. Other species noticed it too. Humans were being treated like a species that didn't matter. Sometimes, council members spoke as if humans should be grateful to even sit in the same chamber. Still, humanity kept trying. Their diplomats attended every meeting. Their ambassadors accepted every rule. The hope was simple. If they acted reasonable and respectful long enough, the rest of the galaxy would eventually treat them the same way. But then came the new law, the Resource Compliance Act, which changed everything. Overnight, the Council froze Earth's asteroid mining ships. These were ships people had spent decades building. Families depended on them. Entire colonies depended on them. The Council claimed humans were over-extracting, even though the official reports showed they followed every rule. Without warning, the ships were seized. Without negotiation, Earth's trade licenses were suspended. The announcement spread within minutes. Screens lit up across human territories. Miners stopped mid-shift. Dock workers stared in disbelief. When Earth's leaders read the document, they were shocked into silence. It was not just unfair. It felt like a slap across the face of an entire species. That it was the moment millions of humans realized something important. The Council wasn't just managing resources. They were putting humanity in its place. People reacted differently. Some felt angry. Some felt disappointed. Some simply felt tired of pretending things would get better. Even the calmest diplomats began to wonder if the Council actually wanted humans to fail. Still, Earth did not respond with anger. Not immediately. Instead, humanity did something unexpected. They went quiet. The Council expected shouting, protests, angry speeches. They expected emotional responses, dramatic threats, or loud demands. But nothing came. Human ambassadors simply left the chamber. Trade representatives quietly packed up their documents. Earth's communication network, normally buzzing with messages to alien worlds, slowly dimmed. At first, the Council took this silence as a victory. They thought humanity had finally given up. They joked among themselves that humans would return in a few weeks, asking for forgiveness and begging for their licenses back. Some even said the silence proved humans weren't ready for true galactic responsibility. But far away from the Council chamber, something very different was happening. Human space entered a phase of calm that felt unusual, almost unnatural. No political speeches were broadcast. No ships left ports. No petitions were sent. The galaxy simply stopped hearing from humanity at all. To outside observers, it looked like Earth had sunk into hopelessness. They had not. Inside government halls, behind locked doors, and inside hidden bases old from the pre-Council days, humanity was preparing. Engineers returned to secret research stations that had been abandoned years ago. Colonies that once disagreed with Earth now stood united. Cargo ships that seemed to be idle were being loaded with classified cargo under strict silence. It was not chaos. It was not revenge. It was focus. For the first time, every human colony agreed on a simple truth. They had tried being patient. They had tried being respectful. And it had gained them nothing. Not once had the Council shown appreciation for humanity's calm behavior. Not once had they accepted humans as equals. Silence was no longer a sign of fear. It was the sound of a species finally waking up. People spoke quietly in their homes, sharing the same thought. If humanity didn't defend its dignity now, they would never get another chance. Workers who had once felt powerless suddenly felt a spark of determination. Scientists who were told their research was too advanced for humans reopened their labs. Pilots who had retired came back for training. Every generation felt the shift. Even children sensed something important was happening. Meanwhile, the council continued treating humans as if they were insignificant. They held more meetings, passed more rules, and claimed humans were adjusting emotionally to the new law. They did not understand the silence. They didn't understand humans at all. But others did. Across distant star systems, independent species whispered about the sudden change. They had seen humanity's strength before, in the small things, in how humans adapted quickly, how they didn't give up easily, how they supported each other even in hard times. And now those same qualities were appearing on an interstellar scale. Ships began disappearing from human docks, not destroyed, not stolen, but quietly relocated. The council noticed the reduced civilian traffic. They didn't worry. They assumed. Humans were shutting down operations because they were too dependent on council resources. They couldn't have been more wrong. Deep in secured facilities beneath Earth's surface, old blueprints were being re-examined. Designs banned by the council were being tested again. Technology the galaxy believed humans didn't have was coming back to life. Teams worked day and night, sharing no details with the outside worlds. Humanity wasn't preparing for a fight. They were preparing for independence. The silence lasted days, then weeks. Not a single human representative returned to the council. No complaints were filed. No requests were made. The galaxy started to feel uneasy. Something felt different. Something felt heavier. And yet, the council still didn't understand what they had awakened. Back on Earth, regular people continued with their daily lives, but they felt the shift like a second heartbeat. News was controlled, calm, and reassuring. Leaders didn't shout or give fiery speeches. They spoke in short, simple messages. Stay patient. Stay focused. We know what we are doing. The messages were enough to keep the population steady. People trusted themselves more than they trusted the council. They knew they were not the villains in this story. They had followed every rule. They had played fair. Now, for the first time, they simply stopped playing. Behind every quiet household, discussion, every halted trade ship, and every silent diplomatic channel, there was an unspoken promise forming across all of human space. They would no longer bow their heads. They would no longer pretend to be small. The council had pushed too far, and they had no idea what was coming next. Humanity's silence became the loudest sound in the galaxy. At first, it confused everyone. The council expected noise, arguments, or at least some kind of emotional reaction. But instead of anger, Earth gave them nothing at all. No messages, no complaints, no calls for meetings. Human diplomats left the chambers quietly, and not one of them returned. For days, other species watched with curiosity. Some thought humans were simply embarrassed. Some believed humans were planning to apologize. Others assumed humans were shocked into silence by the council's harsh punishment. All these guesses were wrong, but no one outside human space realized it yet. Inside human territories, however, the silence felt different. It wasn't empty. It wasn't weak. It was organized. It was focused. And it carried a sense of purpose that people could feel in their bones. Freight stations that once buzzed all day now stood still. Trading hubs dimmed their lights. Human ambassadors packed their things and returned home without saying what came next. Even private shipping companies, which normally ignored political problems, stopped taking new off-world contracts. It was as if humanity had agreed on the same plan without speaking a single word. Everywhere, people sensed a turning point. Even shopkeepers, engineers, cleaners, and teachers whispered to each other about the shift. It was not fear, it was unity. Something rare, something powerful. Earth's leaders didn't hold angry speeches or dramatic announcements. Instead, they spoke calmly. They reminded people to stay patient, to stay aware, and to trust the long-term plan. Their messages were simple, short, and steady, almost like they wanted to avoid stirring panic. But those who paid attention noticed the quiet confidence in their voices. Slowly, humanity began to pull inward. Civilian communication networks that usually sent millions of messages to alien worlds switched to private-only mode. Human research labs cut all off-world data links. Transport pilots were ordered to return home until further notice. Even entertainment broadcasts, which normally reached dozens of species, suddenly stopped. The galaxy started noticing. Representatives from friendly species tried to send inquiries, but the replies were short and polite. We are currently unavailable for diplomatic discussion. No explanations. No details. The Council sent several messages demanding clarity. They got none. It wasn't just the elites who felt the shift. Ordinary people sensed it everywhere. In crowded cities, families talked at their dinner tables about the growing quiet. In distant colonies, workers gathered in groups, trying to guess what Earth was planning. Some felt nervous, but most felt something else: pride. A deep, steady pride that had been building for years, hidden behind patience and good manners. Across the galaxy, humanity had always been seen as a hard-working species, honest, friendly, determined. But they were also seen as too forgiving, too willing to accept unfair treatment. Now that image was breaking. The silence revealed a new side of them. People from other species who had visited Earth before remembered how humans handled challenges. They didn't give up. They didn't quit. And most importantly, they didn't stay weak forever. While the galaxy gossiped and speculated, something huge was happening behind the closed doors of human territory. Old alliances between human colonies, some of which had been strained for decades, began to reconnect. Leaders who once argued suddenly stood together. Political groups that normally disagreed now shared resources without hesitation. It was as if the Council's punishment had erased every internal difference. Underneath all the calm communication, humans were preparing. Supply chains were being rebuilt, but only inward. Cargo ships quietly moved equipment to locations marked as restricted zones. Former officers who had retired years ago were being asked to return officially for advisory roles. Scientists with old research projects that the Council banned were being contacted discreetly. No one outside knew what exactly was happening, but even without details, the shape of the future was becoming clear. Humanity wasn't hiding. They were transforming. Some alien news networks questioned why no human ships were docking at Council stations. Reporters claimed that the lack of human presence made the place feel empty. For years, humans had been among the most active species in travel and trade. Seeing the corridors without human crews felt strange, as if a piece of the galaxy had vanished, and in a way, it had Earth slowly disconnected from every shared channel. Council monitoring posts recorded unusual activity. Human long-range scanners were operating more frequently, but the data was encrypted. Human colonies submitted requests to access their old communication satellites, which had been inactive for years. The requests were approved automatically, but the Council didn't pay attention to what came next. Shortly after, those satellites began shifting into new positions. Observers noticed, but no one could understand the pattern. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't illegal. It was simply confusing. Meanwhile, human universities reopened departments that had been closed under Council pressure. Students who once studied under strict limits now had access to old materials again. Professors who had been forced to abandon entire fields quietly returned to their offices. Research labs lit up with activity. Many of these projects weren't harmful. The Council simply didn't believe humans should be allowed to study them yet. Earth disagreed. The galaxy had expected humans to become quiet because they were defeated. But human silence came from something else entirely. It came from hard lessons learned over centuries. When humans focused, they focused completely. When they united, they moved as one. And when they made a decision, they followed through. The Council sensed something was wrong when they noticed unusual patterns in human import requests. Humanity was ordering far fewer consumer goods, but far more raw materials. Metals, minerals, heavy components. Things normally used for construction and large-scale manufacturing. But no one knew what they were building. Human production facilities were working around the clock, but none of the products were leaving human space. Large energy stations stayed active even during low hours, something that didn't happen before. Deep space shipyards that had been half empty for years were suddenly full. All of this was happening while Earth still refused to send a single representative back to the Council. Some Council members began to panic quietly, though they didn't show it in public. They asked their intelligence branches for reports. The reports came back thin and uncertain. Human information was locked down so tightly that even the most advanced surveillance only showed silhouettes and vague outlines. From the outside, it looked like a species preparing for something enormous. But for what no one could say. Inside humanity's borders, though, people didn't talk about fighting. They talked about securing their future. They talked about dignity. They talked about protecting themselves so they would never again be treated like a minor species. The goal wasn't conflict. The goal was respect. And while no one outside knew the full picture, the reality inside human space was simple. Earth wanted independence. True independence. Independence without fear. Even children sensed something big was happening. Schools encouraged healthy discussions, giving simple explanations that didn't scare them. Teachers told them that sometimes a peaceful silence was stronger than loud arguments. Kids repeated these words at home, and families felt comforted by them. The silence, once confusing, started to feel like a shield. The longer humanity stayed quiet, the more uneasy the Council became. Not because humans were dangerous at that moment, but because humanity was unpredictable now. They were no longer following the expected script. They were no longer trying to impress anyone. They were no longer seeking approval. The galaxy had always underestimated humans. They made that mistake every generation. And every time, humans grew while no one was watching. Now they were growing again. Faster than ever. Quietly. Strategically. And they weren't finished. The Council pushed too hard. Too often for too long. Now humanity wasn't trying to be liked. They weren't trying to fit in. They weren't trying to earn respect. They were building a future in silence, one the galaxy would soon notice. Humanity was done acting nice. And although no one could see the final picture yet, everyone could feel that something big was coming. The first sign that something unusual was happening didn't come from Earth itself. It came from the far edges of human space, in a quiet region where most travelers rarely passed. A small group of pirates known across the sector for harassing human supply ships had gone silent. Their channels were empty. Their bases stopped transmitting. Their ships, usually loud and chaotic, were suddenly gone. At first, nobody cared. Pirates disappeared often. They fought each other, ran out of fuel, or made enemies they couldn't handle. But this silence felt different. It was too sudden, too complete, too clean. A few trading companies took notice, but most of the galaxy didn't think much of it. But then a second report arrived. A listening outpost operated by the Council, located near the border of human space, had gone offline without sending any warning. The outpost wasn't large or important, but it had always been reliable. It monitored ship traffic, weather patterns, and long-range signals. It didn't have enemies. It didn't store anything valuable. Yet one day, it simply stopped responding. A council assumed it was a technical problem. They sent a small patrol ship to check. When the patrol arrived, the station wasn't destroyed. It wasn't damaged. It was just off, powered down, every system dark. As if someone had come in, turned off the lights, and walked away. The patrol scanned the area twice, confused. They found no signs of conflict, no radiation, nothing alarming. The only odd thing was a small message left drifting nearby, a signal that repeated on a loop every few minutes. Keep your distance. The message was short. No signature. No explanation. No threat. Just those 3 words, floating in open space. The patrol team didn't know what it meant, so they sent the information back to the council. Most members dismissed it as a prank or a technical malfunction. Only a few took it seriously. But they decided to investigate anyway, mostly to show that they were maintaining order. They sent another team, a slightly larger one. Just routine. Nothing serious. That team also found nothing except silence. After the second incident, whispers began spreading across nearby sectors. Some traders said human ships were moving strangely, avoiding usual routes and staying deep inside their borders. Others claimed to have seen unusual formations in the distance, large shapes that didn't match any registered vessel designs. But these stories came from long-range sensors, often unreliable, and no one had solid proof. Still, a pattern was forming, even if the council didn't see it yet. The galaxy knew humans were quiet, but now their silence felt like it had weight, like something hidden was happening behind the scenes. People from other species felt unease when passing near human space. They couldn't explain why, but something felt different, like the air itself had changed. Meanwhile, humanity continued as if nothing unusual was happening. Civilians worked. Students studied. Businesses stayed open. To an outsider, life looked calm. But inside that calm, there was a new energy, focused, steady, and very aware of the world watching them. Then came the event that finally caught the council's attention. A council trading convoy, passing near a distant asteroid belt, suddenly picked up a distress beacon. It was weak, almost lost in the static. When they tracked it, they discovered a pirate ship floating aimlessly, all systems disabled. The pirates themselves weren't there. The ship had no crew, no signs of struggle, and no damage except a strange, precise cut in the hull, like someone had opened the ship for inspection and closed it again perfectly. The distress beacon carried another message. You were warned. This time, the message had a tone. Not angry, not threatening, just firm, controlled. The galaxy finally started to realize the truth. Humanity's silence was not coming from weakness. It was the calm before something bigger. Inside Earth's government halls, no one laughed or celebrated. They didn't hold speeches about power. They didn't brag about anything. Human leaders simply continued their work while quietly monitoring the reactions spreading through the galaxy. They knew people were starting to talk. They knew rumors were growing. And they knew every rumor added a little more pressure on the council. But they didn't say a single word in response. Across the colonies, workers noticed changes too. Certain factories began shifting their production schedules. Airspace above some regions became restricted. Cargo drones transported materials without labels. No explanations were given. People didn't ask questions, but everyone understood that something big was being prepared. This new atmosphere didn't feel frightening. It felt purposeful. In outer colonies, residents gathered at night to watch distant skies. The space around them, once busy with civilian traffic, was now heavy with quiet movement. Fleets were shifting positions. but not in a messy or rushed way. Everything was organized. Everything was planned. Everything had direction. Some civilians wondered if the council would try to interfere. Others wondered if the council even knew what was coming. The truth was, they didn't, even after receiving reports of silent pirate disappearances and mysterious messages. Most council members refused to believe it had anything to do with humanity. They convinced themselves humans were incapable of acting with this level of precision. They underestimated human organization. They underestimated human patience. They underestimated human unity. But then came the final warning, the one that changed everything. A council scout ship, traveling near the border, noticed a strange reading, a large structure drifting in the distance. It didn't match any known design. When they tried scanning it, the signals bounced back, unreadable. They moved closer. Slowly, carefully. For a moment, the ship picked up a faint reflection like light hitting a metallic surface. Then something strange happened. Every sensor on the scout ship reset itself. Lights flickered. Screens went blank for exactly 7 seconds. When the systems came back online, the structure was gone. In its place was a calm open field of stars. And then a message pinged on every console. Last warning, keep your distance. This time, the message was clearly marked. It came from human space. The scout ship turned around immediately. That report caused the first real shake inside the council chambers. Not panic, not yet, but discomfort. The message was unmistakable. It was polite in a way, but it was also final. Humanity had never spoken like that before. Not in warnings. Not in diplomacy. Not in anything. The council scrambled for explanations. Some claimed it was a misunderstanding. Others believed humans were bluffing. A few, the cautious ones, argued that something serious was happening inside human space. Something they didn't understand, but no one had answers. Outside the council, however, everyday people were beginning to understand something powerful. Humanity wasn't trying to scare anyone. They weren't trying to start trouble. They were simply drawing a line no one had ever taken seriously before. A quiet line, a firm line backed by something no one in the galaxy had yet seen. Across human colonies, people continued their normal routines. Kids played. Workers fixed machines. Farmers tended fields. But there was a different feeling everywhere. People walked straighter. They spoke softer, but with more confidence. They carried a new sense of identity, one that didn't depend on outside approval. They didn't know exactly what Earth was building, or what new forces were moving behind closed doors. But they trusted their own leaders. They trusted their own people. They trusted humanity. News of the warnings spread across distant worlds. Some species started advising their travelers to avoid human borders for a while, not because humans were dangerous, but because something serious was unfolding. Something unprecedented. Stories grew larger with each telling. Some claimed humans had developed secret technologies. Some said they had awakened ancient knowledge. Others believed Earth had formed alliances nobody knew about. The truth was simpler and far more powerful. Humans had finally realized they didn't need permission to stand tall. They didn't need validation. They didn't need to act nice to be accepted. They had tried that path for too long. Now, they were showing the galaxy another side of themselves. Calm, focused, uncheckable. First warning signs had been sent. The council still thought they were in control. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The moment the galaxy learned that Earth had cut all diplomatic ties, old alliances began to shake. Some worlds panicked, thinking war was coming. Others thought Earth was bluffing and would soon return to the table. But what surprised everyone the most was how calm Earth remained. There were no angry speeches, no threats, no attempts to force anyone back into negotiations. Earth simply moved forward as if nothing had changed. Inside Earth's main defense council, the atmosphere was serious but steady. The council members understood that cutting diplomatic ties was not the end. It was the beginning of something bigger. They had stepped away from the Galactic Council, not to isolate themselves, but to prepare for a new era where humans controlled their own path. Across the city, the training fields buzzed with activity. Young pilots worked harder than ever. Engineers tested new engines, and scientists spent long nights studying ancient star maps and lost technologies. The feeling in the air was strange, like the calm before a storm, yet filled with determination instead of fear. One of the pilots, a quiet man who rarely spoke unless needed, stood on the edge of the launch platform. He watched Earth from above as the sun lit the oceans like molten silver. To him, the whole situation felt unreal. Just a few weeks ago, Earth was part of the largest council in the universe. Now they stood alone, yet somehow stronger than ever. He wasn't the only one feeling the tension. Even the workers who maintained the smallest machines felt it. One technician, known for his sharp humor, stayed silent most of the day. When someone asked him why, he simply said, "We're stepping into a chapter we can't erase." It was a simple sentence, but everyone felt the weight behind it. Meanwhile, far away in the core sector, the Galactic Council struggled to understand Earth's decision. Some members demanded an immediate investigation. Others insisted Earth would eventually fall in line if enough pressure was applied. But one of the oldest council members, who had been alive long before humans reached the stars, shook his head slowly and warned them all. "You don't understand humans," he said. "They do not bluff. And when they walk away for a reason." His words spread across the chamber, turning loud arguments into whispers. But even then, the council didn't fully grasp what was happening. Back on Earth, preparations continued. The Defense Council had discovered something unusual: signals coming from the outer edge of the known galaxy. The signals were faint and structured, like coded messages, almost as if someone or something was testing whether Earth was listening. The scientists working on the signals were both excited and nervous. One researcher, who always kept her hair tied tightly behind her head, spent hours adjusting equipment, convinced the signals had meaning. "It's not random noise," she insisted. "Someone is watching us, and they want to see how we respond." The message reached the council quickly. They debated whether to answer the unknown sender, but ultimately decided against it. Earth had just cut ties with the Galactic Council. Opening communication with an unknown force now could trigger suspicion or panic. Instead, Earth monitored the signals quietly. But Earth was not the only one watching. Across several star systems, small empires and independent factions grew uneasy. Many of them had been under the Galactic Council's influence for centuries and feared what would happen now that a major power like Earth had left. Some sent spies to gather information. Others increased their own military presence, thinking Earth might make the first move. One small empire, located far from the main trade routes, held an emergency meeting. Their leader, a broad-shouldered figure with deep-set eyes, told his advisors, "If Earth rises on its own, the balance of power will shift. We must stay cautious." But caution did not prevent mistakes. A group of mercenaries, hired by a nervous off-world government, attempted to intercept one of Earth's trading vessels. Their goal was simple: test Earth's response. But they failed to consider that Earth had already upgraded its escort ships. As soon as the mercenaries approached, Earth's escort activated a new defensive system. The mercenary ships found themselves unable to move. Their engines flickered and went silent. Their controls failed completely. The crew sat frozen, staring at blank screens as Earth's ship calmly passed by. Not a single shot was fired. Within hours, The mercenaries were drifting helplessly until patrol units from another faction rescued them. When they told their story, people across the galaxy whispered in disbelief. A technology that could disable ships without firing? No one had ever seen such a thing from humans before. Rumors grew. Some claimed Earth had discovered a forgotten ancient power. Others said Earth had made a secret alliance with a mysterious force. Some even believed humans had unlocked a part of their own minds that allowed them to manipulate technology. The truth was simpler. Earth was upgrading faster than anyone expected. Inside Earth's research division, scientists worked day and night. They researched energy fields, gravity distortions, and new materials found only on distant moons. They pushed boundaries without hesitation. For them, leaving the Council meant freedom to innovate without being restricted by old rules. And it showed. Earth's new ships looked different, sleek, silent, almost alive. Their engines produced less heat, used less fuel, and left no trace for scanners. Their weapons were compact, but incredibly powerful. Their shields shimmered like liquid glass. Everything about them felt one step ahead of the rest of the galaxy. As these new ships were tested, more strange signals appeared from the unknown region. This time, the patterns were clearer. It almost sounded like a warning. The scientists studying it felt a shiver run down their spine. They informed the Council immediately. At first, the Council didn't know what to do. They had no treaties left, no allies to depend on. But instead of panicking, they gathered calmly and discussed their options. After hours of quiet analysis, they reached a single conclusion. Earth must be ready. So training intensified even more. Every pilot, every soldier, every technician felt the same growing pressure. Something was coming. Something big. One night, the quiet pilot from the launch platform walked into the simulator hall. He adjusted the straps of his suit and stepped inside the pod. As the simulation activated, he flew through asteroid fields, dodged debris, tested new weapons, and practiced emergency landings. He pushed himself until sweat dripped from his forehead. When he finished, he sat outside the pod, breathing heavily. A friend approached him and asked, "Don't you think you're overdoing it?" He shook his head. "No, something's out there. We all feel it." Days passed. Tension grew. Even children on Earth sensed something strange. They heard adults speak in low voices. They saw soldiers training in the distance. They noticed that the night sky looked different, with more ships traveling beyond the atmosphere. Then, at last, the unknown sender revealed itself. A large object appeared at the edge of the solar system. It wasn't a ship, not in the traditional sense. It was a structure, enormous and strangely shaped. It moved without propulsion, gliding silently through space. Earth's sensors picked it up immediately. Alarms echoed across command centers. The object didn't send a message. It didn't show aggression. It simply existed, massive, mysterious, watching. Earth raised its defenses, but didn't attack. Instead, they observed. The Galactic Council heard about the object as well. Their chambers erupted in fear. Some believed Earth had summoned it. Others believed the object was coming to support humans. Both theories shook the Council to its core, but Earth remained focused. They tracked the object's movement. They analyzed its surface. They studied every signal it emitted. The more they learned, the more they realized one thing. The object was ancient. Older than the Galactic Council. Older than the known galaxy. And it was heading straight toward Earth's orbit. Yet, Earth didn't retreat. They prepared. Engineers checked systems twice. Pilots stayed ready in their ships. Scientists worked around the clock. Even civilians felt prepared, because they trusted their world more now than ever before. And as the object drew closer, Earth's quiet pilot stood once again on the launch platform. He watched the stars with a calm expression. And for the first time, He felt something unexpected, not fear, but purpose. The galaxy believed Earth had cut ties to hide weakness. But Earth knew the truth. They had cut ties to reveal their strength. And now, whatever was coming, ancient or new, friend or enemy, would soon understand that Earth was no longer the same world they once underestimated. Something was approaching. Something powerful. And Earth was ready to face it. The galaxy changed the moment humanity stopped acting nice. No announcement was made. No grand speech echoed across star systems. Yet everyone from the largest empires to the smallest independent planets felt the shift like a slow, steady heartbeat spreading through space. At first, the council tried to pretend nothing had happened. They continued their meetings, their debates, their usual business of passing regulations. But beneath their calm expressions, there was worry. They had pushed too hard, too often, and now the consequences were settling around them like an invisible fog. The biggest change came quietly. Human representatives simply never returned. Their seats in the council chamber, once filled with polite smiles and careful arguments, remained empty day after day. Eventually, someone suggested filling the seats with temporary delegates. The idea was rejected. Even the council knew those seats could not be replaced. Humans had earned them. Humans had filled them honorably. And now humans were gone. Everyone could see that. Empty space in the chamber, like a shadow on the wall. It reminded the council that something important had shifted beyond their control. Meanwhile, in human space, life continued to move forward with a kind of peaceful confidence the galaxy had never seen before. People were not restless. They were not fearful. They were not angry. If anything, ordinary people seemed calmer now than before. The silence between humanity and the galaxy was not heavy. It was deliberate. Human colonies that once depended on off-world trade now focused on building their own systems. They expanded farms, upgraded factories, and repaired old stations. Workers took pride in rebuilding things with their own hands. Every improvement, no matter how small, felt like another step toward freedom. People began to appreciate the strength that came from relying on themselves. There was no more waiting for the council's approval. No more fear of violating rules. No more worrying about being judged. Humanity was shaping its future with steady, confident hands. Across distant worlds, other species watched this transformation with growing interest. Many of them knew what it felt like to be pushed aside by larger powers. They knew the feeling of being ignored or underestimated. When they saw humanity rise without permission, something inside them stirred too. Some worlds quietly began adjusting their own paths, inspired by what humans were doing. They strengthened their borders. They developed their own technologies. They loosened their dependence on the council. For the first time in ages, species across the galaxy felt that change was possible. None of this was spoken openly, of course, but the influence was obvious. Humanity had become a quiet symbol of self-respect. Meanwhile, the council continued to send messages to Earth. At first, they demanded explanations. When no answers came, they softened the tone. They encouraged discussion. They pretended they wanted cooperation. But the silence remained. Eventually, the messages changed again. They were no longer demanding or polite. They became careful, cautious, almost nervous. The council sensed they were losing control of the narrative. Too many species were watching humanity's rise with admiration, not fear. Some council members suggested traveling directly to Earth to meet privately. Others refused, saying it would look desperate. These debates lasted hours, then days, then weeks. For the first time in a very long time, a council felt unsure of themselves. While they argued, humanity continued moving forward. New infrastructure projects began across human territory. Colonies improved their technology without interference. Research stations operated day and night. Massive industries grew stronger. And yet, even with all this progress, humans didn't act arrogant. They didn't shout. They didn't wave their power around. They simply worked, quietly and confidently. This quiet progress made the council even more uneasy. Power that is loud is easy to understand. Power that is silent is impossible to predict. One of the turning points came when a small neutral planet openly announced it wished to sign a direct agreement with Earth without council involvement. It was a peaceful statement, but it shook the entire galaxy. Other worlds followed, asking if humanity would consider trade deals, science partnerships, or cultural exchanges. Humanity responded politely. We welcome friendship, but only on equal terms. These 8 words change everything. It was the first message humanity had sent to the galaxy in months. Not a threat, not a complaint, just a simple truth. And it was enough to show everyone exactly what had changed. Humanity wasn't isolating itself. They were choosing who deserved a seat at their table. Species who had once dismissed humans now treated them with newfound respect. Even those who remained cautious admitted that humans had earned their independence honestly. Meanwhile, the council struggled to maintain control. Their influence weakened as more species turned toward Earth. Some council members argued that humanity should be punished for stepping away. Others warned that such a decision would be dangerous. In private rooms, they whispered about the mysterious human technologies, about the quiet warnings near the borders, and about the ships no one had officially seen, but everyone had heard rumors about. They remembered how the task force had disappeared in seconds. Even though the full story was never released to the public, the council understood enough. Humanity had surpassed expectations in ways they could not explain. And now the galaxy was watching them as potential leaders, not followers. Eventually, the council sent one final message to Earth. It wasn't a demand. It wasn't an order. It wasn't even a request for negotiation. It was a simple line. We hope our future interactions remain peaceful. Earth replied with an equally simple message. They will if respect goes both ways. These 16 words became the new balance of power in the galaxy. After that, something unexpected happened. For the first time in council history, they began updating their laws, adjusting old restrictions, removing outdated regulations, and treating minor species with more fairness. It was as if humanity's decision to walk away had forced them to look in the mirror. But Earth didn't return to the council. They had moved beyond needing the approval of an institution that had treated them unfairly for so long. People across human space felt a quiet pride in this. No celebrations were held. No grand declarations were made. Instead, families sat together feeling safer. Workers felt more respected. Children grew up hearing stories not about punishment, but about unity and strength. Humanity had finally learned that acting nice wasn't the same as being respected. Now, they were respected because they respected themselves. The galaxy slowly adjusted to this new reality. Trade routes shifted. Diplomacy changed tone. Independent coalitions formed with humanity as an anchor. Even species that had once doubted humans now approached them with genuine interest. It wasn't fear that surrounded humanity now. It was trust. Humans had shown the galaxy that strength didn't always mean aggression. It didn't mean threats or dominance. Sometimes strength meant walking away quietly and building your own future until others noticed. In the end, humanity didn't conquer anything. They didn't force change. They didn't shout or fight. They simply stood tall after being pushed too far. And the galaxy finally understood what humans had been trying to say. For years, respect is not demanded. Respect is earned. Respect is shared. But it begins with standing up for yourself. Humanity had done exactly that. And the galaxy would never be the same again.